Seven, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 51 of CBD Talk Podcast. And today we have an interesting topic, something we haven't really covered before. We're talking with Matt Kahl from Veterans for Natural Rights, and we are going to be discussing a little bit about pesticides, what is and isn't being done, and what you need to know about that. But first of all, Matt, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me.
And how about we start out with just giving us a little bit of background on how you got into the cannabis industry?
Well, it starts a very long time ago, actually. It starts in my early life when I was in my 20s. I came across cannabis when I was in college, and I tried it, but it was never a medical substance to me. It was a recreational one. And of course, I gave it up for a long period of time. I went into the military, and I was medevac for my second deployment. I had injuries that completely destroyed who I was. Traumatic brain injury, 3 spinal injuries. I took a sheet of plate metal to the face. It took out a portion of my upper jaw, and really messed me up for years. And that's not even to mention the PTSD that came with it. When I finally got out of the service, I circled the drain for a long period of time, about 2 years, that I was just in stasis and I didn't know what to do with myself. I was on ungodly amounts of prescription drugs, and I really couldn't see any way to pull my life together with all of these prescription drugs piled on top of me. So I knew that I had to change something. When my liver failed, I knew that it had to happen soon.
Yeah.
So I picked up and I moved my entire family out to Colorado. My first year in Colorado was 2013, and that was the first year I actually started casting about for hemp seed. I wanted to get one of the first hemp licenses in the nation, and in 2014, I actually obtained one of the first R&D hemp licenses in the nation.
Nice.
And I began growing hemp at that time. I was already growing medical marijuana indoors in order to try to treat myself. And with the combination of the medical marijuana and the hemp extract that I was able to produce, I got myself off of all the prescription drugs. And it was about 18 to 20 at the time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And what is the status right now with respect to the VA and medical marijuana?
As of now, it is still not an approved treatment. They cannot recommend, and in most states, they can't even really talk about it with you. But in legal states, they are allowed to speak to the veteran about cannabis treatment. You have to be under your state's medical program. If you are under your state's medical program, then the use of cannabis is not going to impact your benefits or your treatment or anything like that. You just have to have your doctor's knowledge, and you have to be in the state approved medical program.
Well, that's a huge step forward.
Yeah. And that happened in I think it was the first time that happened was 2011, where they first started allowing doctors to speak with veterans about cannabis use. Yeah.
Okay. We just still have a long way to go on that. And gosh, if we could get every veteran off of 18 pharmaceuticals a day, that would be amazing.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I often say that I consider it my patriotic duty to smoke cannabis, because by smoking cannabis, I have saved my government around $250,000 over the course of a couple of years.
Holy cow. Holy
Yeah.
cow. Oh my gosh. Putting numbers to that? Wow.
Yeah. I tried to go back and I tried to see exactly how many doctor visits I would go for a
Hmm.
year, how many drugs I was on, what those drugs cost. And that's the number I came up with. I came up with a number that was just under $250,000, about $220,000.
Oh, amazing. A ridiculous. That's amazing. That is amazing. So, okay, so let's fast forward to now. And I know you're doing. We'll touch on Veterans for Natural Rights in just a minute. Um, but you were involved. You're involved in the was it the pesticide committee for the state of Colorado?
Pesticide Advisory Committee, yes.
Okay. Now, anyone with any active brain cells would know that we do not want to inhale or ingest pesticides.
hmm
So, what is the state's stance right now? The state of Colorado stance right now on pesticides with medical marijuana.
Right now, they're treating it like pesticides on a number of other crops. There's not really a real significant difference in their approach. However, there is a real significant difference in terms of the end user.
Hmm.
Cannabis is unlike any other natural crop out there. If you take a look at a microscopic picture of, let's say, a nicotine leaf, Nicotiana tabacum, which is, the tobacco leaf. If you take a look at the tobacco leaf, it has a number of small hairs on it that are trichomes, but they are microscopic. They're not capable of being seen by the naked eye. And as a result, they're fairly smooth, and they don't have a lot of surface area. If you take a look at a cannabis flower, you see that the entire surface is absolutely crusted with trichomes. And trichomes are just tall, sticky, capitate sacs of a solvent that can easily dissolve and hold pesticides. Many pesticides are fat soluble. As we know, trichomes are full of fat soluble liquids. These trichomes actually absorb pesticides and then protect and preserve them. All cannabinoids and terpenes are anti-spoiling agents. They're antioxidants, and they tend to preserve these pesticides from being broken down by either the environment or any other processes. One of the things that happens when we take these cannabis flowers and we start to concentrate all of the cannabinoids that are in these flowers down into a usable extract, we also tend to concentrate all of the pesticides and fungicides and growth regulators that are applied to the plant. And the practice is pretty rampant in the industry right now. It's not just Colorado, it's everywhere.
Yeah. Okay. So they're really not doing anything to protect on the medical side the plants from having pesticides on them.
No, and they don't really see it as a different issue from some other plants. They're approving pesticides for use on the plant that produce harmful breakdown products when they're heated, and they're allowing a whole battery of practices that's not generally good for the end user. And I don't know if you've heard about cannabis hyperemesis syndrome.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But there's a pretty good hypothesis out there that cannabis hyperemesis syndrome is probably caused by ingesting too many pesticides
Yeah,
or fungicides.
pesticide poisoning.
Yeah,
Okay,
correct.
so now how about you compare the pesticide rules for medical with our brand new recreational cannabis industry here in the state of Colorado. So pretty new. Medical's been around for a long time. Pretty new on the rec side. Is there a difference between medical and rec when it comes to pesticides?
Yeah, well, there's no real difference in the practice of using pesticides on cannabis. It's pretty much the same across the entire industry. However, the practice for testing for pesticides is different. On the rec side, every single sample must be batch tested. So every
Batch
batch
tested for.
for pesticides, fungicides, for residual solvents, for you name it. There's all kinds of different requirements. Microbials, they test for all kinds of stuff, and that is standard. That is required on the recreational side, and it
Oh,
was
good. So the recreational side, they've got the consumer's interest at heart. They're testing to make sure that there's no residual pesticides.
seems like it. And I don't really buy recreational. I'm a medical patient. I
Hmm.
grow my own. I process my own because that way I know
Yeah.
exactly what's in it. But on the medical side, they're not really holding up their end of the bargain. Recreational dispensaries and recreational side production is required to be tested, but on the medical side, testing is still not required.
Okay,
Last
so the
year,
sick people don't have to have testing done, but the recreational people, what they buy has been tested.
yes,
Just making sure that everyone is clear on what we're saying here,
yeah,
because the
that's the
hypocrisy
sort of
is running pretty thick right now.
it's a pretty ass backwards sort of way of legislating cannabis that we have going on
Yeah.
here in the state of
Yeah,
Colorado.
so we've got, people with immune deficiencies on the med side, um, epilepsy, just PTSD, all sorts of awesome things. And so they aren't being tested for pesticides. Their product isn't being tested for pesticides, but the recreational is. Any differences in any of the processes with growing or extracting or anything like that, medical and rec?
The processes for growing and extracting are largely the same across the entire industry. There's no real difference in how to cultivate a cannabis plant from one side to the other.
Yeah,
It's
like Carter Baird says, the difference is in the color of the tag
yeah,
that's on the
exactly.
plant.
That's all it is, and it's also in the facility that it's housed in because I
Hmm.
think they still have to segregate their plants,
Okay.
their recreational and medical plants. But other than that, there's really no difference in growing either one on either side.
And since you have been in these meetings, what seems to be what are the reasons that they're giving for doing not testing uh, for pesticides and fungicides in the medical side?
There's a very heavy commercial interest in being able to apply pesticides. It sort of seems like the way that our Department of Agriculture and the Pesticide Advisory Committee is set up is they're looking for reasons to allow a pesticide to be used rather than reasons to disallow it.
Okay, and what about the new thing that I hear is coming around where they're talking about in the state of Colorado adding a chemical or something, adding some sort of marker?
Yeah,
What's
so
that?
this was a surprise. It came up on the docket early on in the legislative season, and I immediately jumped on the bill and I just tore it to pieces because it's an atrocity. It is
Can you explain that a little bit? What it is, what they're trying to do?
they're trying to pass a law that will require some kind of a company here in Colorado to produce a spray-on tracking system. So you can spray this chemical on a plant, and then that plant, wherever it's grown, you will be able to track it back to the location where it was tagged. Supposedly, the government is really trying to cut down on diversion and shipping to other states, things like that. So they want to be able to test a product in another state and then say, "Hey, it came from Colorado, from this place right here." Then they can try to figure out how it got there. Problem is, you're spraying chemicals
Uh-huh.
on a plant that you're going to smoke.
Hmm.
Who knows what
Or
the
that you're going to put into a concentrated tincture or something like that, like a nano part, a nano whatever tincture that, yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, the bill provides no restrictions for what the tracking system could be composed of. It could be nanotechnology. It could be chemicals that are possibly harmful to health,
Carcinogens. Yeah.
carcinogens, things that when they're exposed to combustion,
Mm-hmm.
change into other dangerous products. So there's no real control. There's no real it doesn't seem like the bill has any public health purpose. The only purpose for this bill is to give law enforcement another tool to go after,
Mm-hmm.
you
Yeah,
know.
it's a finger pointing bill.
Yeah, it really is. And there's another issue with the bill that our Congress is not supposed to be able to pass a law that will benefit one company. And
Mm.
there's significant concern that this bill will be doing exactly that. It'll be drafting a law that will give favor to one particular company that will produce this tracking technology that will then have exclusive license with the state of Colorado.
Wow.
So there's some definite ethics issues involved there. And of course, then there's the ethical issue of just spraying something on the medicine that you're going to be given to patients.
Yeah, that's just for the purpose of, like you said, law enforcement. So,
Yeah.
with some of the bills that are flying around Congress right now on the national level, and, I would hope and pray that some of these will go through so that we don't have to even be dealing with this ridiculous drug war anymore. Um, so, like for example, if Cory Booker's law goes through, gets or his bill goes through, you can tell I'm a politician, huh? That piece of paper with all the words on it. If that goes through, um, and they just decriminalize it, do you think that maybe something like that would take away the reasoning for this tracking law, or
It certainly would. I mean, if it's decriminalized across the board, there is no reason for diversion to occur at
mm-hmm.
all. The only reason why diversion is occurring in Colorado is because other states haven't gotten their asses in gear yet
Yeah.
and legalized it. If
Yeah.
they had legalized it, there would be no diversion coming from Colorado going to other states.
True.
All of it would be being produced inside the confines of every single state. So, if we had some universal blanket decriminalization law and everybody could either grow their own or go to a store to purchase their own, then there wouldn't be any diversion. There wouldn't be any link to organized crime whatsoever. It would all be 100% above board commercial activity that is taxable by the state.
And also, if it's decriminalized, then that would give us the opportunity to have that certified organic. Guys, when you see certified organic, it's not really certified organic. They can say that they grow it with organic practice, but there is no certification for cannabis as an organic plant. I think there's one company that says they can. I'm not sure how that goes, but I don't know. Take everything with a grain of salt, I guess.
There's a lot of people who say that they can, but it's a national certifying process, and because it is a national process, it goes by federal law, and cannabis is illegal under federal law.
Yeah. So, best thing to do, grow it yourself. That
Mm-hmm.
way you know exactly what's happening. Unless you can go with like a co-op or something where excuse me, a caregiver where you can see what they do, and you can establish a relationship with them that you trust, and put your license under them. Maybe that might work for you. But pesticides are a ridiculous idea when it comes to something that you're going to be smoking or ingesting as a edible, or a sublingual or something like that, especially for sick people. And the fact that it's okay for medical and not for rec is just absolutely beyond me. Okay, so let's talk about your organization.
right? Veterans for Natural Rights. I founded in around 2014, and it was kind of a very informal organization at first. I became highly involved in the political process when I first got here to Colorado because we didn't have PTSD as a covered condition. And while, I was lucky, lucky because I got medevaced. I had serious injuries as the result of combat tour. Not everybody is that lucky. Some people come back injured in their mind and in their heart, but they don't have any physical injuries whatsoever. A lot of those guys I was coming across here in Colorado, other vets who had PTSD, but they didn't have any injuries that they could claim. So a lot of them had to either buy cannabis on the recreational side, which is twice the price, or they had to find other ways of going about medicating themselves. So it became kind of a crusade of mine to make sure that PTSD got covered as a qualifying condition for cannabis in the state of Colorado. And I started showing up to Board of Health meetings, CDPHE meetings, and I started pushing. I got shot down a number of times. Myself and a number of other veterans, we were all very involved in this process. It was a group effort, but we kept pushing. We kept pushing. After 2015, when the CDPHE shot us down, I went out into the lobby and I talked with Sue Sisley, who was there. I had asked her to come, and she testified also with us for PTSD as a covered condition, but we were shot down again. I talked with Sue Sisley, with Bob Hoban and Jonathan Singer and a couple others. And we hammered out a plan to draft some legislation and also launch a lawsuit against the state to try to force them to recognize PTSD as a covered condition. So that plan was hatched. We filed the suit in 2015, myself and 4 other veterans and 1 civilian with PTSD also. It was very important that we have at least 1 civilian as a plaintiff that had PTSD from non-combat situations. It needs to be known that civilians have PTSD too, and that we're not just here fighting for our own rights, but we're fighting for the rights of every human being in the country.
Now, can you? I know this may surprise you, but there are people in the world who don't know who Dr. Sisley is.
She's a personal hero of mine. She got fired from the state of Arizona college, University of Arizona, or one of the two, either the State University or the University of Arizona. She was fired for pursuing a study on cannabis for PTSD in veterans. And she refused to back down from her position that this work absolutely needs to be done. We have to have a double-blind clinical trial in order to understand what this plant does, how it helps, if it helps at all. Yeah, so Sue Sisley got fired from University of Arizona back before I even got to Colorado. I think it was in 2013 that she was fired. And she took her study to independent review boards and continued pushing. She came up here to Colorado to obtain some funding from the CDPHE, and I was there for that. It was the first time I was actually introduced to her. I was there to testify for her study, and she managed to secure $2.1 million to complete the study. And she's down there in Scottsdale, Arizona right now, knocking it out. She's enrolled maybe half of the people that she needs. She needs about 76 people, veterans total. And she's got probably half of them. But unfortunately, the VA is now putting up roadblocks in her way, and she can't get the other half enrolled because she can't have access to any sorts of patient databases where she can check off her criterion. Her inclusion criteria for the study are very high. You need to have a very, very specific set of conditions, and your CAP score, which is the way that they actually measure your PTSD. You have to be completely naive to cannabis. You can't have tried it before.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of these things automatically rule out the majority of veterans who try to sign up for the study. What she really needs is she needs access to the VA, I guess, archives of patients that fit her criterion in her area. If she had that, she'd be able to complete the study this year, and then there'd be another year of number crunching, and I think we'd have results by probably 2019.
So what could be done to help?
Right now, the only thing that can be done is to get the VA to release their stranglehold on the information that she needs. And there's a small group of vets that have been dedicated to this, and we've been shooting messages, letters, emails back and forth between people in the Arizona VA system,
Mm-hmm.
and trying to rebut their arguments, trying to convince them why it's necessary. But so far,
Are there any cannabis-friendly Congress people?
there are a few, yes, and as of yet, none of them have been able to have any sort of effect on this process whatsoever. I think the only thing that's really going to do it is a change in the administration.
Mm-hmm.
If the administration actually puts out a position that says, "Hey, listen, we want to get all the information, and then we want to help the vets," then all of this would go forward very smoothly, very quickly.
And it
But
has to be limited to people in Arizona. They can't also include people from Colorado.
unless they are willing to relocate to take part in the study. And now that's on their own. You know, if they are if they qualify, if their inclusion criterion actually includes them, then they are perfectly capable of getting up and moving to Scottsdale for I think it's a 6-week trial. I'm not 100% sure on that number though,
Mm-hmm.
so don't quote me on it. But for about 6 weeks at their own expense,
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, the study does pay people who are participating in it, but it does not pay a large enough stipend for somebody to relocate halfway across the country.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's just kind of cost prohibitive for most veterans to take part in this study, even if they're elsewhere in the country and they want to contribute somehow.
So my brain automatically goes to someone that's on disability that has not used cannabis that fits the qualifications, and getting a fundraising opportunity around that to be able to put these people up for 6 weeks.
Yeah. And that's totally possible. Right now,
We did interview someone about a year ago that had mentioned that if there was a fundraising opportunity, and I'm going to look him up and I'm going to contact him. He's in LA and works with a lot of Hollywood people and in the cannabis industry. So maybe this might match up.
that'd be great. If we can get some kind of support, some kind of help,
Yeah.
to get the study done. This study is a landmark
This is
study.
huge. This study is very important.
It is the first of its kind. There are no other triple-blind, placebo-controlled trials on cannabis in the United States at this time.
Okay, and anybody listening, guys, you have any ideas, shoot me an email. Just go to the website, cbdtalkpodcast.com, or to the Facebook page. Get me any information, and we'll see what we can come up with, because we know the government's not going to do it. So, all right. So, So we talked about her, and what she has done for veterans and PTSD is just a gift. But we need to help her be able to complete her work. What else does So what other things is VNR working on right now?
Well, I have to kind of give Sue Sisley the credit for almost for the idea, or rather the impetus behind VNR. It was right around the time that I met Sue Sisley that I really wanted to get involved in the political arena and actually change the world, make something good happen. And I attribute a lot of that to her. She is the one that taught me that stepping outside of your comfort zone, her comfort zone is clinical trials and science, and she's not a politician. She's just a doctor trying to do some work, but she had to step outside of her comfort zone and start lobbying for change in Congress so that she could get her study done. And I saw that as a sort of call to action for me, that I need to get off my ass and I need to start pushing for change, meaningful change in the halls of power, not just in the state, but all across the nation. So right now, VNR, we started as a community organization. I honestly, I just started giving away cannabis to anybody that would try it at first. Any veteran that would try it, because I knew it got me off of my cocktail of pills, and I knew that it could help other people get off their cocktail of pills too. And I wanted everybody to have a shot at that. So I started just giving away free cannabis. And I noticed that in the lines that would form at some of these events, that veterans would just start talking to each other and get a lot of needed talk therapy, really, is what it was. And they were telling their stories, sometimes some really brutal stuff that might have happened overseas. And they got to sort of exercise those demons in a situation that they weren't going to be judged, and everybody been through the same thing. And I realized that was really what the calling was going to be, is getting people out of their basements, out of their isolation, getting them together and sharing and leaning on one another and being that team that we used to have in the military that we all miss so badly.
And you've got the different generations helping each other as well, which I think a lot of times is very helpful.
Yeah,
Because not every soldier that came home within the last 10 years has a parent who was also a soldier.
Yeah.
And I'm sure parents, as much as they want to help, they just don't know how.
Yeah. Mine didn't. Mine had no idea. And honestly, my dad, he's 28-year veteran of the U.S. Marine Corps. He retired a full bird colonel, and he even deployed to Vietnam, but he didn't see any action or anything like that. Before I deployed, he used to talk about PTSD like it was fake, like it was not a real thing.
And now?
He did not believe it. Now he believes it.
Yeah.
He saw me with his own eyes. He knew that there was something wrong that nobody else could fix. And not only that, but he was also completely against cannabis and other drugs for his entire life. Very straight and narrow kind of guy. And I changed his mind about cannabis too. He saw how bad off I was on all the prescription drugs, and he saw that I was just trying to do what I was told to do, and that it didn't work, and that I had to defy doctor's orders. I actually had to choose my own course and do something that was illegal, that he didn't approve of, that nobody else approved of, in order to try to heal myself. And when he came out here 1 year later to Colorado and saw me, he was amazed. He was amazed by what had occurred, all the drugs that I'd come off of, and how different I was, how much more engaged and happy and energetic. I was talkative. I spent time with my family, with my wife and my kids, and all of these things he saw, and he realized that it was due to cannabis, something that he hated and that he didn't have any regard for. And I knew that I had convinced him that time he came out, when I started to get a little irritated about something, a little angry. And he sat down and very calmly looked me in the eye and said, "Matt, do you need to go medicate?"
Wow.
And I said, I sat there and I thought about it for a second. I said, "Yeah, Dad, actually, I do. Good call. Thanks." And I went outside and medicated, and I came back in and I was a different person. And neither one of us have looked back since. He is 100% on board with cannabis, and he believes that it should be offered to every veteran coming back home if they can use it.
And again, it's the stories. It's the real life stories, and anecdote, whatever. But it's people explaining and experiencing what's actually happening so that men like your father can say, wow, I was wrong.
Yep.
And then they can go back and tell their staunch friends, hey guys, let's pull back a little bit and let's take a look at this, because what Matt's experienced is a 180, and everyone deserves this. Everyone deserves this chance.
I've convinced a lot of people back home in North Carolina that cannabis is medicine.
And
And
North Carolina is a interesting state.
oh yeah, yeah, it's pretty conservative there.
Yeah, it is. I had someone who was just trying to get CBD in North Carolina. I'm like, we'll hook you up, don't worry. We'll get you what you need, But yeah, oh my gosh. Please, please, Congress, please, let's just get this over with. Let's just decriminalize it. Let's take care of all these little ridiculous stigma oriented issues and move forward and help some people. We really need that. So, what is your plan for 2018 with VNR?
BNR 2018. So I waded into the legislative arena pretty hard, and that's really the purpose of that is to give people a mission. What we're missing after we leave the service is the team that we used to have, and of course the mission. And a lot of people, when they're set adrift by the military, they sort of lose direction. They don't
Mm-hmm.
have any of the moorings necessary to help tie them down. And that's what we try to give veterans who are trying to heal. We give them a team that they can lean on, and we give them a mission, which is change the world. So last year, we passed that bill, the Cannabis for PTSD bill. So as of June 5th of last year, PTSD is a covered condition for medical marijuana in the state of Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
The registry still has to be updated, and I think they might do that in March. But physicians are already making recommendations of medical marijuana for PTSD, and the affirmative defense is already in place. So all the protections are there. It's just a matter of updating the registry. Mm-hmm. This year, there are a number of things that are up on deck, and one of them is that bill that proposes to have the spray-on technology, the tracking technology.
Yeah.
Of course, I honestly don't think that one's probably going to leave committee. I think it'll die there in either first committee or second committee. It'll be Senate committee or House committee.
I hope.
It'll die there in one of those two places, but I don't want it. I don't want to not concentrate on it and then
exactly
have the chance that it might slip through, Mm-hmm. So I definitely have to concentrate on that. There is a flower and extract equivalency bill that is coming up, and that one's sponsored by Chris Kennedy, and he's drafting a law that will make a hard equivalency between an amount of a flower and an amount of extract. And I think edibles are also in that list too, because as of now, the rules for extracts and edibles are remarkably nonsensical.
Okay.
Yeah, they so an ounce of cannabis can be 8 grams of an extract is roughly equivalent to an ounce of cannabis. Mm-hmm. As it's treated now. And now that's not really that big of an issue. An ounce of cannabis can and will produce 8 grams of extract, especially if it's a higher yielding strain. Like if it's a strain that has a high percentage of cannabinoids, then it will produce more oil. But the rules for edibles are kind of ridiculous. Most people, they can carry about 2 ounces on their person. And that's the carry limit as it stands now. So that 2 ounces translates into 16 grams of concentrate. But unfortunately, it only translates into about 1,600 milligrams of edibles.
Because of the weight of the chocolate bar or whatever.
Something like that, yeah, and they're basically saying that you can only have the equivalent of 1,600 milligrams of edibles on your person at any given time, and I think they're kind of doing that. They're basing it off of the recreational market, the 10 milligram top serving.
Mm-hmm.
So as of now, like there's no real rational rule for edibles and how it would translate to a possession for cannabis flower.
Wow.
So there's a number of things that need to be changed and fixed and updated about this issue. And I think that we're going to actually have an opportunity to slip some other things into the bill that might be good for patients too. But it remains to be seen how it all plays out in the process. So we'll keep our ears tuned and be ready.
Well, I appreciate the update on what's happening in Colorado.
Like Colorado, there's other stuff too.
Yeah.
Tennessee is trying to legalize medical marijuana. They are the very first southern state to try to
Right,
tackle.
and my sister and mother actually live there. My mother is we're going through hell right now because her pain doctor, even though she's only on CBD, has flagged her for cannabis.
Yeah.
Because it's the metabolites, and so now we're trying to get all that because they're like, oh, we're going to take this, we're going to take that, no more this, no more that, you're cutting off. I'm like, oh, fuck. But my sister said that the governor in Colorado said he's going to veto it. So there needs to be a loud outcry.
Yeah, it's a possible. So like I think that this is the first year that Tennessee's got a chance.
Yeah.
Last year there was a medical marijuana bill, and I had a few fingers in that one also, but I did not believe that it had a serious chance of actually getting off the ground, and it did die in committee.
Well,
but this year, I think it has a serious chance, and they've got a good list of qualifying conditions, including PTSD, and I think that it has a decent chance of making it out of the House and the Senate. And,
the interesting thing with their CBD law is that they allow 0.9% THC in their CBD instead of 0.3%. So it's like, well, that's interesting because that's not even qualified as industrial hemp then. So that's interesting.
Texas has its own rules also.
Yeah.
Texas, I think, is like at 0.5. And every single state has their own little law. Honestly, if it has anything less than 1%, it's hemp. I mean,
okay. Is that the national?
That is not the national standard. The national standard is 0.3%, but for all intents and purposes, any flower that contains 1% or less of THC is not going to get anybody high.
Right. Although it can throw some metabolites on those tests. So it's
definitely can.
Oh God. All right. So Tennessee people, I don't know what to tell you about getting to your governor, but I know that there's an election coming up, and I think some voices need to be pretty loud about this. Your veterans, I don't care how conservative the state is, a conservative state should be supporting its veterans. Well, of course, freaking every state should be supporting its veterans, but especially the southern states. They are loud and proud when it comes to veterans' rights, and you're just slapping them in the face if you do not get this. If that governor vetoes this, that is a slap in the face of every veteran in the country. So do what you got to. Do what you got to, people.
If you say, I support the vets, and you also say, I don't support medical marijuana for PTSD, then you don't really support the vets.
Exactly. All right, everybody. That's it for this week. We'll have Matt on another call sometime with some updates. Thank you so much for spending this time with us. We appreciate it. And some great information for everybody to sit and think about and to act on. So, everybody, we will see you in the next episode. Stay happy, stay healthy. And Matt, we'll see you another time.
Thanks for having me, Dawn.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.